Okay. Hello, everyone. We are back. Let's start with the project creation. So I'm going to share on resources a PDF that we will be using. And also show this. So until now, we were downloading, Git cloning the assignments that we had created for you. And so you didn't have to start from scratch. We did see how we start from scratch the Vue applications and also React application. We create React app. We have seen that you can also start it your own. And in fact, we will use create React app today. But for the backend part, if we want to have it like a bit more complete as it was in this last assignment and not a very simple server, I think when we did the servers of the first day, we may have created the server file as well from scratch with just very few commands, but normally servers also need some other packages in order to work better. So they need something to log errors and to load some default information for ports, etc. And so we will be using something that is called Express Generator. So this Express Generator, it's similar to create React app. It's a command that creates all the structure for the Express background. And so you don't really have to write and create the files one by hand, but we do have to follow a bit this structure that we have prepared for you here for creating the different parts. So we need to create the backend, the front end, put them together, and also create a GitHub repository, because for each project you will be creating your own repo and adding me as collaborator so that I can see your code and comment or help you with it. In fact, you can also add Joy, I think, as a collaborator. It will be good so that also she can see your code if you have some technical issue. Okay, so let's try to follow these instructions. First, we will be doing the scaffolding, meaning like create from scratch, set up the initial structure for the Express part, for the backend. So in your terminal, run the following command to create an application called My Express app. This name, of course, you can change, and you can instead you can put your own name if you like. But I will put this a bit bigger. I will write NPX, not NPM, NPX.
Anna?
Yes.
Are we supposed to be seeing something on your screen?
Was it something?
I don't think it's showing.
It's not showing. Which one I'm sharing? Sorry, maybe I'm sharing the wrong one because I have two screens. Okay, now? No, your screen share is loading. Let me see. Now, I think. Okay.
It works.
Now we see.
Okay, yeah, thanks, because I would go on. I didn't realize I was sharing the last one, the wrong one. So yes, we have these four parts, like only the backend, only the front end, or we join the two together. Is this the same PDF I have shared? So you can also check it, and then also create the GitHub repository. So for the Express scaffolding, we will run this npx express generator, no view, my express app. This last part, my express app, it's the name of your app, so you can put whatever you want. And so you run npx express generator. It's a program that it's already created that allows you to create this structure. No view, We will specify that we don't want any views because we will be using our server only for APIs. We don't want the server to give any HTML pages. As I was saying this morning, servers additionally could also load HTML, so they could have views on the backend because you could load views from the backend. Yes.
Anna, sorry. So it doesn't matter where we install this, right? I mean, you are, for example, you're in desktop.
Every time it will create a new one. Depends on where you want to create it. So right now I'm creating it in the desktop. It's not that you are not installing something. You are just creating, yes, the new folder with the structure. And then you can move it also. So it's not going to be fixed on the desktop. So you can run it on the desktop, or if you have another folder for my projects, you can go in there. Wherever you run it, there it will create this. And then I will call this my Express app. And at the beginning, I think if you have never used Express Generator before, it will tell you, I need to install Express Generator, and you just click yes. And this will install it, and it will be installed in your laptop, and you can use it later without need to reinstall it every time. And then it will create this structure, the public folder, routes folder, app.js, package, and a bin with a bin www. If you are trying it and you have some issue, it gives you some error or something, tell me. So when this is done, we should go to this directory. So cd my Express app. And in fact, if we check this directory, it has these folders, the bin folder, the public folder, routes folder, and the main app.js and a package.json. But you will see that we have the node modules folder is missing. We need to install the first dependencies. So we first run npm install, and it installs all the packages that are predefined on the package.json. So let me open this also on this code. So this is the structure that we have created, and the package.json already had some things inside. So we already load Express, it already installs Express, something for debugging, this cookie parser we will be using if we are doing authentication later. Morgan is for a package for error messages, for controlling like a middleware for logging error messages. And so there are some that are already that were already defined on the package.json. And so when you run npm install, it installs these ones, the first ones. But probably for your projects, you will also need to use MySQL, .env, so that you create the .env file, and nodemon, the one that we have seen that we use so that the server restarts every time without us having to reinstall. So then the next thing is to install the packages that you may need. So if you just want to do the front part, you don't need to do this. No, this is creating the backend. So let me pass to this terminal now. Here. So the next is that I want to install npm install MySQL, nodemon, and which one I said? .env. And you see that these are also added to the package.json, because every time we install a package, it's also written there on a package.json, so that the next time that we pass this project to someone else and wants to install this, already knows which packages we need. Okay. So also you will notice here we're using yarn instead of npm. You can use both. I think we have been using NPM for the whole bootcamp, but Yarn is a similar package manager like NPM. So with Yarn, it will also work. So then change the homepage route in routes index.js to this. Let's see what we have in routes. We have two different routes created, one for index and one for users. And on the index, there is this very simple one for when you want to load the slash part. And you will see it uses something different. We have not seen this. Render, this command, render the index page. And this is because the server can be also used, as I was saying, for loading HTML. But we don't want to use it for loading any HTML in our case. So we will change this command to send and remove the index part. So to just send some hello message, some title. This would be our JSON. Later, you can modify this and I'll add the API routes as we have done in the previous assignment. So for the slash, you want to respond with some data. For the slash user, you want to respond some other data, etc. It has already two different routes created. So if you check on the app.js, you will see it uses for the slash, it uses this index router, the index file. So index router here makes reference to this routes index file. And so all the routes that starts with slash will go here. And the routes that slash start with users will be using the users router. So it's for different APIs. If you want, you can have just the slash loading like nothing, like a welcome message, and then slash user or slash books or slash movies, different APIs that you will be creating. You can delete those if you want, or you can delete the users and just keep the index. So this is a very simple first setup. Then the next thing we will need to do is to copy the model folder from any of the previous database activities that we have, full stack activities. So I'm going to copy this. This is my Express app, and I'm going to paste here the model folder, just as we had it. Because this model folder has these two helper files that are useful for connecting with the database. This helper, we created this on the code-op, and so it doesn't load automatically from Express, but you can copy it and you can use it directly. And then this database file, remember that in this, you need to specify your own database things. So if I open it here, this database does have some specific things of the database that you will be using. So this, especially this line, you will need to modify in order to create any tables that you will need for your databases. The helper, you don't need to touch it. It's just for setting up the connection with the database. So these two files, you need to copy the model, the database, the model folder, database and helper from any one of the previous projects. Okay, then I'm going back to package.json.
Sorry, how do I copy it from the past project? I'm a little lost on this step.
Yes, so you just open the folder of a past project. So I opened here this, that was the full stack, and there is this folder, and I just copy and open this new folder I created with my Express app, and I paste it inside here.
Thanks.
So this model folder contains the helper, which is a file for creating the DB connection so that you can use this DB function that we have been using for our examples. And then the database.js is this migration file that we were running, so that we set up, we create or recreate the tables every time that you load the app. If you run it again, it will create like a fresh version of the tables. And in fact, in order to be able to run this, we need to go inside the package.json and modify a couple of things here on the scripts. First, we modify the start script so that instead of node, it uses nodemon. So this package that we have installed, so that every time we run npm start, it loads nodemon, and so that means that the server restarts with any change. So we change the node to nodemon, and then a comma, and we add the migrate command, and the migrate will be calling node model database.js. So when I run npm run migrate, it will actually come here on the script and will replace the command run migrate with this command. So it will run the model/database.js so that it will create the tables. So these two changes on the package.json, the nodemon and the migrate script. Here, of course, if you need to run, to store any data, we must create a .env file. So here you can also copy what we had from previous assignments. So db user root, db password, so that copy it better so that we know exactly what was used. Again, for this, so for this, if you open the folder, you will not see the .env file actually. So if you open this folder I had before where I copied the model, in here you don't see the .env file, because any file that starts with a dot, it's a hidden file. And so you cannot hit and simply copy it easier from here. You should open it on the VS Code. So I can simply open one of my previous assignments on VS Code and come here to the .env file and copy this information. And of course, later this database name to-dos, you will have to modify and put your own database name when you create one. Then another thing, the 8 that we skipped, is to change the default port. So the default port, if you go here on bin www, it's set to 3000. We will be using 3000 for the front end, because this is if you just create the backend, then you don't mind, you can use the 3000 there. But we will be using 3000 from the Create React app. So we change this to 5000. Or if you know that 5000 doesn't work, as in my case, I'm going to directly change it to 5001. And this is here on the bin www. And then the last part is to initialize the Git so that you have the ability to do commits and to create versions of your code. So for this, you run git init on the project directory. So in here, you run git init. Using master as the name for the initial branch. Let's see, okay. Initialize empty repository, blah, blah, blah. It created another hidden file that's called .git that will be containing, it indicates that this folder uses Git for versioning. And we also want to create a file called .gitignore. In here, we will specify which files we don't want updated later to GitHub because they contain sensitive information or because simply they are not necessary. And for sure, in here, we put the node modules because the node modules folder is very heavy and we don't want to update it and upload it every time. Every user that will download our code can create his own node modules by running npm install. And so this gitignore file should contain node modules and the .env. .env, I also don't want to upload it because it contains my password and maybe later some API key for some external API. And so this information that I don't want to add to GitHub, I specify here on the gitignore that I don't upload. Okay, and then that's it, that's finished. If we do git add and the dot, that means that we add all files to be controlled, the versions, and then git commit and some message -m initial commit, and then you have your initial commit done. Right now, you're not really pushing this somewhere on the web. You can keep like commits and versions locally only. So this git commit means that you have versions and you can go back with your code locally if you have some error, something that is broken, so you can go back locally. Later, we will connect this also with the repository online on GitHub. Okay, so remember that Git and GitHub are two different things. You can use Git also only locally if you want and have different versions committing messages and etc. And that's it for the backend. Then you would go and change basically these two routes folder, which is the ones that we have been using, or just one route folder file, sorry, and specify here the APIs to set up. And also you would need to go to database and modify the table. So modify this line, the SQL line, to create your own tables for what you will create. So that's the backend part. If we want the front end separate, for this, so if we want to start an only React project, so just the front end. In your terminal, again, in the place that you want the folder to be created, to scaffold the new React application, you run npx, create React app, and the name of the app that you want to create. So if I run npx, create React app, my React app, npx, not npm, npx. This takes a bit longer.
Does this have to have a different name than our backend app?
So this is the instruction if you want to create a front end, because you just want to work with a front end. But the next one that you see here, full stack app, is that if you want actually to create this as a full stack project, you create it inside the backend. So I will, while we're waiting for the app, I'm going to show you here. So you could go inside here on the folder that we were with the backend and run npx create React app. And now instead of calling it some name, call it client. Because remember on our full stack projects, there was a client project, a folder, and the React, all the React information was in there. So if now on my backend, I run npx create React app client, it will also install and create this client folder with the React information in there. So you can either, okay. So you can create it separately, and I have it here, a separate folder, my React app, because maybe I would just want to do some front-end project, or you create it inside your Express app, so your backend, and you name it client. Or you can even, maybe by mistake, you created it somewhere else. If you want, you move it inside the backend project and you just rename it to client.
And do we need to npm install inside client again?
Yeah, so then if you want to start working with the React part, so start npm run, I need to cd my React app, and in here, I see that there are some modules already loaded, but anyway, normally you would need to do the npm install in here again. And then you start modifying the app.js and the index.js file. And this comes with a bit of extra stuff that you can delete. So these three, the logo, report web vitals, setup tests, you delete. App test, you can delete. You just leave these four: index, app, and app, then the CSS. And then on the index, you remove the things that you deleted, so the report web vitals, or you simply copy the index and the app from some of the previous projects so that you have it. So if not, I need to remove this report web vitals that I have deleted. I think there is nothing else here that it will give an error. And here the logo, I don't need, and basically I will just remove everything, just delete the div, and have it clean and ready to start with this. And so now if I was running npm start, it would start the front end only, but I have deleted it, so I don't see anything. I should add something like hello here, and I see, at least see the hello. And this is the front end part. The same if I install it inside the server. So this was the front end. Here I have the client installed inside the server. I need to again cd client and npm install. We were doing this also with the full stack projects that you were downloading. We were npm install on the root folder on the backend, and then cd client and again npm install. And then we had to start the server and start the client. So we need to do both things. And also here you can do the same, come to source and clean it. Again, delete these things. The web vitals we don't need, and on the app.js I don't need this. So on the, if you just have the React part, we do this, we clean up a bit the app.js and the index and replace everything with what you want. And then you can do git add all and git commit to commit your changes. As it says, you don't have to do git init because the Create React app has already done that for you. So that will be useful if you want to commit things. This is when you're doing just a front end. If you're doing a full stack, there will be just one repository, the one that we created on the backend, and it's including all the folders that are nested in it. So we don't need to have like two git inits and git repositories, one for the back and one for the front. We just have one. And so for the full stack project, you create the Express app, as we said. You create the React app inside the Express folder with npx create React app client. And you can clean it as we did. And then one more line that you need to add is in package.json of the client. So on your client in package.json here, you have to come here like on the end and add this proxy line so that it connects to the server. And remember, here the port that you have defined for the server. So you add proxy and that it makes reference to the server. And then the last thing is to remove the JIT from the client. So being still on the client folder, if you're not, you just cd client and you run this command rm-rf.jit, rm-rf.jit. This will remove the JIT from the client because we will now have just one JIT repository that will be for the whole full stack, is the one that we created before on the backend. And so we don't need the one that the client has by default. So how is it progressing? Done? Have your folders ready? And so you either have this full stack or you have this just the front end if you just want to work with the front end. And that's it for creating those. Stop this.
Where do you add the proxy? Is that part of
on the client package.json? And so once you have the project ready, we could actually try to run it. Like I'm going to the npm start on the front end, on the back end, sorry. First I start the server and then I go to the client and npm start the client, but I will not see much. Source either can resolve indexes, clients, source. Let me check one thing. Yes, so I think the server needs one more thing to comment. Let me see if this is what's causing the error. Not resolve index CSS. I have deleted index CSS by mistake. Okay. Okay, so I just removed CSS. And
already getting a lot of errors?
no.
No.
5001. Okay, but I'm not doing any get from the client. So if I would fetch something from the client, I would see, okay, now I cannot see this. So one more thing, last thing on the app.js, it's not on the instructions, but you must also remove this. I think it's not going to work without this, that you have to come on the app.js file of your server and comment this line, app use, the line 15, app use express static path jointer name public. Because if not, it tries to find some HTML to load from the public folder where it has static HTML. We don't want that. We want the server to load the APIs that we will be giving back from these files, from the routes file. So this for now, just comment it. At least it's not going to work now. Maybe if you change the APIs later, we will see. It's not needed for now. And you can test that your server works, because if you write localhost and the port that we have defined, you will see the JSON that we have set it to send. The server, right? Not the front end. For now, the front end doesn't do anything. It doesn't do any fetch or anything. And if you write /users, so it's going to use this users router, and that means that it will use this and will respond you with this message. So respond with the source. So check it if you want on the browser, localhost 5000. Without anything, it should send you back this small JSON, and the other one should just send some string. The errors, Mela, that you get are like the ones from before, but we don't use any database yet.
No, it's I don't know what's going on.
It's the version maybe of the node, or
yeah, I tried downgrading to Node, but then it also asked me a password, which I'm not.
maybe it's the admin password from your laptop that it's asking.
Yeah, and I tried putting that in, and it also didn't work.
Anyway, no such file or directory. Being able to find the file. Or what were you trying to run? Like npm install?
I did that, and then I tried npm start, and then tried npm. Also, when I tried npm install again, then it was.
Are you in the correct folder? Because it says that it cannot find the package JSON. But this file, you see it? Does it exist? The package JSON file?
Yeah.
So you are trying npm start or npm install on the root folder where the package JSON also is.
Yes, I'm trying to think, because it was, maybe I was doing it from the client folder. I'll try.
Well, the client also has a package JSON, so it should work there. Just install the client part. So I'm going to stop my servers now. And then the last part is to create a GitHub repo online. So you go to GitHub, you already have your account there. And select the plus size on the top sign on the top right corner. So here, and select new repository. Choose your project name, ideally in lowercase, so MV, ideally in lowercase, MVP, photo. You can add some description. You can say if you make it private or public. Let's make it private for now, and then you just add as add the people that you want. Do not add add the README file. Do not select and add the README file because we already have. Do we have a README in here? No. Okay. We will add this later probably. Add the README file. Add the gitignore. Also, we don't need to add here because we already created one. So we don't need to add a gitignore, license none, and create repository. And then in here, we must use this part because we already have an existing repository locally. And so we just need to follow these instructions to copy this and add them to this repo that we created. Into a terminal in your project folder on your computer. So here on the project folder, not on the client, so on the source project, on the root, I mean on the backend here, is where we will want to do this, to connect it with this repo that we created. Git branch main and git push origin main. And so now it's connected, and every time you can do the git commit and git push, and you have it here. If I refresh, I see all these packages that I have on locally. It's all here, except from the ones that I have set on the gitignore. So node modules, it's not here, and the .env, it's not here. The client is also not here, I see. Because I added it later, so let me add all again. Commit. Okay, and so it adds all the client, and then git push. Okay, now my client is also here. And that's it. Invite us as collaborators. You can go to the settings tab to choose who has access, and then I can pass you like my username, and you can invite a collaborator to add me to your projects.